So today I was looking at Job 1:13, and it starts with one day. And I immediately started thinking one day is every day. It's a day like any other day, but it was one day. And I wonder how often we think that our days are just general days. None of us expect sometimes for things to happen, and you just never know what a day can bring. And in this day, his family was feasting. So one day while feasting, so it was not a sad day. They were not looking for anything to happen that day. It was just a day like any other day, except it was one that they were celebrating. They were enjoying each other's company. And it says that the Sabaeans attacked and carried off his livestock, put the servants to the sword, fire from the sky, and Chaldeans come, and then windstorms. In fact, I'll read it. That's the way I want to do it. It says, one day when Job's sons and daughters were feasting and drinking wine at the older brother's house, a messenger came to Job and said, the oxen were plowing and the donkeys were grazing nearby, and the Sabaeans attacked and carried them off. They put the servants to the sword, and I am the only one who has escaped to tell you. While he was still speaking, another messenger came and said, the fire of God fell from the sky and burned up the sheep and the servants, and I am the only one who has escaped to tell you. While he was still speaking, another messenger came and said, the Chaldeans formed 3 raiding parties and swept down on your camels and carried them off. They put the servants to the sword, and I am the only one who has escaped to tell you. While he was still speaking, yet another messenger came and said, your sons and daughters were feasting and drinking wine at the eldest brother's house, when suddenly a mighty wind swept in from the desert and struck the 4 corners of the house. It collapsed on them, and they are dead. And I am the only one that has escaped to tell you. At this, Job got up and tore his robe and shaved his head. Then he fell to the ground in worship and said, naked I come from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised. In all this, Job did not sin by charging God with wrongdoing. So I just want to start with just the one day, any other day, they're feasting, and start with this out of the blue, just out of the blue. And this has got to have caused mass confusion. Was it the Sabaeans? Was it the Chaldeans? Was it an act of nature? Was it God himself? And I think that this is Satan at the top of his game. He'll hit you on every side and use multiple ways of triggering and hurting you, so that you really don't know what to think. Was it the Sabaeans? I thought they were, traveling merchants. I didn't realize. Did we need to maybe seek a peace treaty? Was the Chaldeans? Should we declare war? What is coming up with the Chaldeans? Fire? Do we need to evacuate? Prevent this fire from spreading? Windstorm? Out of where? Killed the kids? What the hell is what I would be saying. Like, it's just like every which way. It's too late. And I just, I thought they were feasting. They thought this was going to be a good day. And they did not. And I know Job did not see this coming. And I want us to notice that it wasn't until he heard that his kids were gone that he even spoke or moved or took action. So, I'm not going to say he wasn't fazed by the other news. Maybe he was still stunned. I don't know. But he's not mourning, screaming, crying, anything until he loses his kids. And then it says he got up, and I'm imagining the adrenaline that would be pumping through my veins at that time, and how you just can't sit still when you've got that level of adrenaline pumping through you, or you're in that level of fight, flight, freeze mode. And I just, I thought about what he did. He tore his robe. That's what he did with all of that energy and all of that adrenaline. He tore his robe, he shaved his head, and he started worshiping God. And I thought, I can think of a lot of things that people in our world do when they get that kind of horrifying, devastating, mass confusion, hurtful kind of news. And first thing that comes to mind is get a gun. Sad to say, a lot of people are like, let's get them back, let's fight. And certainly there's a time, for fighting, but that wasn't Job's first response. Let's kill the Chaldeans, let's kill the Sabaeans. Knock down a bunch of stuff, just have a fit of mass expressions where you just like, you scream and knock things down. No, scream a list of obscenities. That would be certainly very understandable if that happened, but he didn't. Or run. I've seen people just get so freaked out that they just run. But Job, he tore his robe. And there's another time in the Old Testament, and I'm sure there's plenty of them actually, but one that was immediately cross-referenced was the story of Joseph. And Joseph was the youngest of all the sons, and he was the one who had the robe of many colors, and all the other brothers thought that he was he's actually not the youngest, he's the second to the youngest, because he had a little brother Ben, but Joseph was Jacob's son by his precious Rachel. And the other boys decided they didn't like Joseph, and they threw him in a pit, and they were going to leave him to die. And when they came back, Reuben, who was the oldest, saw that Joseph wasn't there, and he tore his clothes. Like, oh my God, what have we done to my little brother, our little brother? So that's just kind of some context, but I don't know how relevant it is, but I just think we tend to try and dress up and look our best, and it's rare that somebody actually wants to take their appearance down a notch to let people know I am suffering. And anyway, interesting. And then shaving his head. So having well kept hair is kind of a sign of maybe health, prosperity. Shaving your head is a sign that you're struggling and hurting. And I just, I wanted to acknowledge that's the way he handles it. He tears his own robe. He doesn't turn his anger outward and start an attack on other people. But I just was this morning sitting with that feeling of having everything that you care about taken away from you from all different directions, all different methods, and not knowing where it came from, and wondering, is this fire from God? Is this an act of nature? Is this, war by another country? And it made me think of Syria. It made me think of what just happened there when the people were hit with chemical warfare, and babies were killed by gas. And it's just horrible. It's horrible. And how did he handle it? He shaved his head, tore his clothes, and he started worshiping God. Maybe that's what there is for us to do.